And you brought up the investment made, and has been an extraordinary amount of cash. I didn't know they would be spending so much, because I was under the impression they're under some financial problems. But hey-ho, they've spent at this point in time, at time of recording, more than any other club in Europe's top 5 leagues. But we had Lauren on this weekend. So Dan, I want to get your take on this first as an outsider viewing in to Arsenal Football Club, because all the signings have been pretty much young players who are far from the finished product. I'm trying to make sense of it. Lauren was critical of it. Bakary Sagna, who we spoke to before the game, he was on TV afterwards. He was critical of it. A lot of ex-Arsenal players have been critical of the approach. And we've had Tony Adams and Martin Keown on our show many, many times. And the word that they use, particularly Tony, is recruitment. Recruitment. And it's never been good enough for Tony and for a lot of fans. Has it been good enough this summer? Does it make sense to you?
I think it does make sense in a way. I don't think we can sit here and kind of criticize Arsenal for at least not trying to get out of the rut they're in, and they are doing it. If you talk about signing young players, well, they were criticized for signing more experienced players when Arteta came in. I mean, they were widely panned for handing Willian a long-term contract from Chelsea when seemingly no one else was going to do that. So I personally don't think we can. I wouldn't criticize them for signing young players. They're not going to win the league in 1 year's, 2 years, or 3 years' time. But if these young players come in and they develop, then maybe in 4 years, 5 years, they're going to be sort of 26, 27, full of experience, and will be coming to the peak of their powers. So no, I think what Arsenal are doing from the outside looking in is they're kind of buying for tomorrow, and that makes sense. They're not going to be able to go out and get players that's going to make that good. We'll see them become contenders in the next year or two. That's just not going to happen. So, in my opinion, they're doing the sensible thing in buying. Okay, well, let's buy the best youngsters around, and hopefully, in 3, 4, 5 years' time, it will pay off. Now, I do think, £50 million for Ben White is an awful lot of money. Whether he's worth that or not, I don't know. But Brighton managed to take advantage of that situation, and they've just spent a lot of money on Aaron Ramsdale. But again, if these players in 3 years, 4 years come very good, then what position are Arsenal going to be in? All of a sudden, people will look at their recruitment and be like, oh, they really got it right 4 years ago. It's easy to say now they're getting it wrong, but in 4 years' time, we could look back, still say they got it wrong, or, oh, well, they got it really right.
James, are these the type of players that you can see becoming world-class? And I mean, top-tier players in 3-4 years. Would that satisfy the fans in a season where fans are back in the stadium and will be on his back, as we've mentioned?
Yeah, I think Dan's right. I think Arsenal have almost put themselves in a position where they almost have to make these moves because they've invested so heavily in players, towards the end of their career, be that with signings or with new contracts. If you think about the amount of money they tied up in Willian, as Dan mentioned, previously in David Luiz, in Aubameyang with a big 3-year deal they signed last summer. I think there was a need to rejuvenate and freshen up the squad with young talent, to buy players who have some resale value because they're such historically terrible sellers. I think as a long-term strategy, it works great. But as you say, Adam, football, it's not really a long-term industry. The short term of results creates such pressure, and fans might be able to sit back and look at it and say, well, I see how that makes sense rationally, but emotionally, when they're losing games week in, week out, it's going to be very, very tricky for the club to sell this idea of a long-term strategy if they keep failing to get short-term results. And it's Mikel Arteta's job to strike that balance. I think there's basically a sort of minimum bar that fans expect from Arsenal this season. And I think that's probably about 6th place. I think anything below that, there's going to be enormous criticism. And I think it's going to be a difficult environment in which to work. So he needs to find a way to take that young talent, balance it with some of the more experienced heads in the squad, and begin churning out results. Because I think if you look at the Premier League, Arsenal do have a chance at that top 6. I think it's possible, even with this bad start. We're only 2 games in. But we need to see progress really, really quickly now.
Yeah, the problem is the competition for the established top 6, the big 6, is really under threat. What with Leicester in the last couple of seasons they've had, and of course now West Ham, who beat Leicester last night as well. So there might even be a surprise package along the way.